there's a Smokey Robinson song called Tracks of My Tears, and it has a very poignant lyric in it, and that's, "So take a good look at my face and realize my smile looks out of place. Look closer, it's easy to trace the tracks of my tears." That's this movie in a nutshell. Hey guys, Matt here. This is my review of Blonde. This movie is directed by Andrew Dominik, who previously did The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, as well as Killing Them Softly. This movie stars Ana de Armas. Now, the plot of this movie is the stories of Marilyn Monroe, from her childhood all the way until her untimely death. Now, this movie is based on a book of the same name, Blonde, by Joyce Carol Oates. Now, this movie is not exactly a biopic. It seems to be jumping around from time period to time period. So we get things in chronological order, but not everything's explained to us, because a good chunk of the movie is told from the perspective of Norma Jean Baker, who later becomes Marilyn Monroe. So we get this stylized movie that's about Norma Jean, but it's from her point of view. And the movie does something interesting with that character, in that Norma Jean Baker separates herself from the persona that is Marilyn Monroe. So you have a behind-the-scenes woman, and then you have a in front of the camera, the glitz, the glamour, the success version that is Marilyn Monroe. Now, going into this film, I heard all these things about what type of movie it was going to be, who was going to star in the role, and its subject matter. And so I was making these expectations up in my head of, okay, so we're probably going to get scenes of this, or images of this, and it's not going to be a real family-friendly type movie. And so after seeing the movie, I was right. But I didn't think it was going to be so much of that subject matter. What we get is a movie that, instead of showing the highs and lows of Norma Jean Baker's life, instead of showing us the heartbreaks and triumphs that is her relationships or her career and success, we just get the lows and the very lows and the lowest of her life, which is very sad as far as the emotions go. The film has some aspiring aspects to it, and there's some glimmers and there's some silver linings, which I'll get to in a little bit, but this movie is very depressing. If you're a Marilyn Monroe fan and you want a movie like My Week with Marilyn, or you want a biopic that shows her whole life, start to finish, the good stuff and the bad stuff, you're going to be disappointed, because this movie is very comparable to two other movies that I've seen, that after you're done watching it, you just feel gross and depressed, and you just want to take a shower afterwards. This movie is very similar to Requiem for a Dream and Irreversible. If you've seen those movies, then you'll understand why. It's just terrible things that happened, and movies that don't really have a happy ending. It's one of those movies where it's like the director wanted to show things that happen in a person's life to be kind of like a lesson or a statement. This movie has Ana de Armas, who is wonderful in the movie. She's the best part of it. She does a wonderful job, a great job as Marilyn Norma Jean Baker. She captures the emotion, the naivety, the friendliness, the, cheeriness when it happens of this character. She's great. She looks just like her. She sounds like her. She's wonderful. But the tone and the subject matter is just a gut punch after gut punch. It's just so sad. The character of Marilyn Monroe was crying through like 80%, 90% of this movie. And just when, you finally get to see a smile, you finally get to see that happiness come out, something dramatic and life-changing happens. and you just feel so bad for this character. Something interesting that Andrew Dominik wanted to do is, I guess they do this in the book. I haven't read the book, so I don't know, but he likes to take the real-life historical figures, Marilyn's partners, or people that she ends up in relationships with, and they don't say their names, but if you know her history, or if you're familiar with who she dated and almost married, then you'll know who the characters are supposed to be. Like, you have Bobby Cannavale as Joe DiMaggio, but they call him the athlete. They reference that he played baseball. She meets a playwright, played by Adrian Brody, who is supposed to be Arthur Miller, but they don't say that. She has a very indiscreet scene with a president that is JFK. So they kind of avoid saying certain things, which is interesting. It's an interesting take, because normally, in biopics and stuff, they want the dates and the places and the characters, or the person's name right there so you know who it is. They don't do that here. Something interesting that Andrew Dominik does is, just like in The Assassination of Jesse James or Killing Them Softly, he paints a very realistic picture of the world. Here, I think he goes a little too dark with it, but everything in this movie seems real. Now, there are some moments where Marilyn is imagining things. There are some scenes that are like dreamlike sequences where you don't know if it's really happening or if she's just in a daze. There are some really interesting scenes that some are black and white. Some scenes are point of view. Some are like, okay. Others are like, did you have to... That's an interesting choice. Others are very dizzying, when she gets involved with substance abuse. You have those scenes where it's all a blur because she's half unconscious, some of the time. And again, this movie is just heartbreak after heartbreak, and it's very depressing. Ana de Armas is the best thing about this movie. So because the joy, the sadness, and it's real dark, it's real bleak, and it kind of makes you wonder, for a movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes, did it have to be that long? Did you have to include everything they have in this movie? So, if you have to watch a Marilyn Monroe movie, I recommend watching My Week with Marilyn with Michelle Williams, or you could watch the Marilyn Tapes, which is a documentary. It's also kind of sad, but it's not as bleak and just depressing as this movie is. So, because Ana de Armas is the only joy, the only shining light in this movie, and the rest is just sad, I'm going to give Blonde a B-. I'm curious why the director decided to make this type of movie. It's almost as if he was trying to make a statement, because Marilyn is just abused and coerced and manipulated throughout the movie. She rarely gets to be herself, and when she is, it goes away, it dissipates really quick. So, till next time, guys. See ya.